On this phone, share the room and work hard for the crowd. Sleeping late on a Sunday, I never get to mouth. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. Oh, it's a long way that gets filled by the day. It's a long way from Clare to here. When Friday evening comes around, Terry's on to fighting. My mom would like a letter home, but I'm not into writing. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. Oh, it's a long way, it gets further by the day. It's a long way from Clare to here. My breaks my heart when I think Josephine. I told her I'd be coming home with pockets full of green. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. Oh, it's a long way, it gets further by the day. It's a long way from Clare to here. And the only time I feel alright is when I'm into drinking. It eases out the pain a bit, it levels out my thinking. Since it's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. Oh, it's a long way, it gets further by the day. It's a long way from Clare to here. I sometimes hear a fiddle play, maybe it's an ocean. I drink my sea white horses on the other ocean. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way, it gets further by the day. It's a long way from Clare to here. It's a long way from Clare to here. The only time I feel alright is when I'm into drinking. Cheers. No, it's a long time. Good opportunity there. Well, ain't no use sitting one while if you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit one while. It'll never do somehow. When you're at the break of dawn, look out your window. I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling. Don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use to turn on the light, the light I never know. There ain't no use to turn on the light, I'm on the dark side of the road. I wish there was something to say to try to change my mind and stay, but we never did too much talking anyway. Don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use to calling out my name like you never done before. There ain't no use to calling out my name, I can't hear you anymore. I'm thinking and walking down the road. Oh, I love me when a child I was told I give her my heart, but she wanted my soul. Don't think twice, it's alright. So, baby, where I'm bound, I can't tell. A goodbye is too good word, baby. Not to say very well. I say you treated me unkind. You could have done better, but I don't mind. You just kinda wasted my precious time. Don't think twice, it's alright. I say you treated me unkind. You could have done better, but I don't mind. You just kinda wasted my precious time. Don't think twice, it's alright. Greetings, friends. How you doing? We leave it there at 2. Just a few quiet numbers, and well, no harm to leave out my heart and loot every now and again, without leaving it out completely out of anything that is a special place in my heart. And opened up with just a brief hangout, nothing too particular to talk about. Well, I do really. I'm going to sort of focus on a particular area, but uh, nothing too intense. Just Clare to hear lyrics. Funny thing was, I was in Clare today. I just drove up to the local forest on the top of the hill. Just it's amazing perspective, isn't it? I mean, here you are stuck in the middle of what you call it's not a city really, but it's built up area anyway. So you're sort of down ground and level in the senses. And then you go up relatively nearby, you're talking about 4 or 5 miles, and a relatively short distance, I think the hill, oh, I guess, but I'm guessing maybe 500 meter, would it be 500 meters, 500 feet, 500 meters, absolutely just above Limerick as you're looking. And this Limerick looks really small, and it actually is really small. It's amazing the sort of perspective, the change in perspective, and how much, well, not just to mind any normal minded person, right, i.e. the average spinning ball earther, and what they would make of a view of that like that. But as a flat earther, you can just see how that difference in perspective makes all of the difference. And well, the world is absolutely not what we have been told it is now. What is it? Well, that's a more pressing question, or at least should be a more pressing question for all of us as individuals. If it's not, there's no point at all then. Well, at times anyway, there's very little point anyway, but yeah, if it's not a pressing thing as an individual having come this far, well then to me there would seem to be no point whatsoever. But yeah, a few interesting things tonight. I sang a few songs. This is my way, just on top of the hilltop. I don't think it was well. It was a little hillock, a little bit higher in the vicinity. Outside of that, wasn't anyone higher for miles. And so I sang a few songs, but yeah, you get a different perspective. Well, one thing I've been talking about is the circular pattern that the clouds form in, right? This is what the Vesica Pisces represents in one sense, or the flower of life is also based on this. And of course, everything goes back to the source itself, the one creator, one creator. Right? So we have a central source doing its emanation. It's emanating in a central or in a certain pattern. And this is the spiral pattern, the flower of life. Now, what does it take to make a spiral? Well, you need a few separate movements, right? And not to get into that, but that's where we must, instead of, well, everything has been mirrored. So sort of externalizing it, we keep the earth flat and stationary, but something is moving, right? And something is part of the earth. So we understand this is an earthbound source, all of the skylights, or at least once we start thinking in that direction. Well, then you can start thinking about what might cause this spiral of life, this Vesica Pisces pattern. Yeah, as I say, with the clouds, you really get. I really saw it tonight, but I guess I know what I'm looking. I don't mean to say I know what I'm looking at, but I've been thinking about this every time I go out. I just see what I see and have it in a certain sort of context. But when you get up, just especially when I got that hill tonight and looked around and walked to the forest is. It's all fucking dead and decayed and everything, and it's a far cry from what it used to be. Sort of blasted, and used to be lovely walks there. Now you just got shitty concrete paving the pathways there, and it's not even a pathway. It's more like a roadway laid down for diggers to come in and cut the shit out of the trees. And then you have a load of detritus and all of that stuff just rotting away on the ground. I guess in 20 years, it'll make a difference. Right now, it looks shitty. Let's hope that the ultimate motivation behind the movers and shakers of this place we call Earth, right? Anagram of heart and earth, and especially, sorry, not heart, it is an anagram of self, anagram of heart and ether. So we think about how the ether was represented in archaic times or in old fashioned times. We have the A connected to E, which is very, very symbolic, really. So we We look at the words, especially base IC. So the lowest sort of form, the truth, the heart that matters. Yeah, the more basic the word attached to the more, the more significant the word as it is attached to the most basic of concepts. And they're all the simple, I guess, true concepts, if you want to look at it in a certain way. Everything that applies to us and our reality, physically or mentally, yeah, so just open up with Clare to Hear. So, fully enough, it's not a long way at all from Clare to Hear. In other sense, it's a million miles. My beautiful Steve is down there, but yeah, just first a song to sing. And I like the sort of slower version, actually. If I was to record that, or if I was to just think about any sort of arrangement, definitely have it in a slower tempo. And yeah, one of those songs you grow up with in Ireland here, the drinking songs, but also as a guitarist, one of the usuals you might ring out if you're busking or playing for somebody or whatever. Second song, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, Bob Dylan. Excellent, favorite song for years and years. So hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to say too much about that. But don't think twice, it's all right. Everything for a reason. It's how you feel now about things, I guess, is the most important thing. Anything that you've done, thought, anything is a part of your history, well, it's done now, so it's how you feel about it. And well, if you're happy these days, you've been doing something wrong because there's so much to be unhappy about. But ultimately, we have to place some sort of greater significance, and something we're forced to as well. I used to think of religion as a sort of a consolation, It's because I held basic core truths, which we can also do relate to, a cold and lonely existence thrown into the deep end of some shit that we have no bearing on whatsoever. So religion and everything to do with religion, this was genuine in my way from about, I don't know, just grew and grew since I was 18, probably, well, since I was younger even, but we went to mass, went through the whole system until, yeah, I suppose it coincided in a way with Flat Earth, but not so intimately connected as well at the same time. That I did a complete U-turn. So yeah, coming to Flat Earth, we are always looking for a greater context. We have to be, right? What's the point otherwise? I mean, of course we can go and say what we have to say to whoever, to people around us. You expect difficulties, of course, just complete strangers in the street. Um, I wouldn't have any problem saying it to anybody at this stage. A simple question, you're not intruding. It's like someone with the cancer forms to fill in, where you consent to make a weekly donation or a monthly donation or something like that. Yeah, it's not necessarily stop. It wouldn't necessarily stop anybody as well. Anyone I would talk to, they're probably already sitting down, or they're just in a stationary enough state. And I just go, I want to ask you a question. Heard anything about the controversies going on, whether the earth is flat or not. So that's the only way I'd ever approach it. If I sense any antagonism at all, of course you're going to get opposing points of view. Most people they've been trained to think that the whole idea is stupid. So depending on how the relationship is going, the brief as it is, I will be the first to move on. If I sense any resistance, but if I don't sense any resistance at all, people don't say much, then I'll just say a few brief things, like, I can sum it up at this stage in about 2 or 3 minutes. But it would just take me talking to somebody. And I have no distinction who I'll talk to. I'll talk to an older lady or an older man as just as much as I talk to a younger child. I was talking to children this week, and yeah, these are just the by the way sort of things, you know what I mean? What can we do in our everyday life to what does it get this message across? That's outside then how we decide to live or how we coping ourselves. with all of this, well, desperate reality in one sense. It's so conflicting. So yeah, most of us who are here are going to chat briefly, and I'll throw out the question as well, general question as what I'll talk about tonight. Each of these things are very important in themselves, I would say, and I have a habit of sort of brushing over stuff. When I talk about what I'm going to talk about, it'll be knowing where I can point any investigator who hasn't come across any of this information to deeper research, where they can go and satisfy themselves to whatever degree they want to. So lots of things like that I sort of brush over and take for granted. But at this stage, if you haven't come so far, well, you haven't been paying attention for one, and maybe your heart isn't in it. I mean, the least we can do outside of, as I said, trying to get the message across in one, all the only messages as well is just to think for yourself. The message I leave all the people I meet, I don't meet, so it's a very rare enough thing, but is, yeah, the usual message. Just look into it, take a little. I already have a way of summing it up to make it look like that. If you hold, and rightly so, if you hold that you're living on a spinning ball, you have to tell me about the speeds that were, and you can tell me that people in America or Australia now are clinging to the side of it, etc., and all life is going on as normal. And that's it. So after leaving them with that thought to think about, I just leave them, just look into it yourself and see where it takes you. If you're so inclined, all the best. Take care. And that's it. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And but these are sort of secondary things. And in the meantime, we're coming across our own information as individuals, and we're trying to make something out of it, trying to, clarify, um, um, I don't know, grasp at some sense to it all. What does it all mean? I mean, it's so overwhelming, or it can be. Definitely. I think in a big way, our minds have been sort of been open and prepared for exposure to the real reality, as if we sort of didn't know already. It will be certainly a shock to our system, in terms of what we think our systems are. But if we've been paying attention, and there's been the opportunity to pretty much all of us to pay attention, with all of our own private, personal monoliths. Now, monolith is monolith. Lith is stone. Look it up yourself. Lith, right? Here we have the th inside. So monolith is one stone. One stone is one S tone. The S tone is the th, the theta. So what the theta represents, the combination of the 0 and the 1, the uncountable and countable, the immaterial and the material. And well, here we are in this human heart, earth, ether centered existence. So it's all down to, I guess, following the clues that were laid there for us. There's very few things there's nothing actually that's new under the sun. That's nothing new under Aristarchus. What? So I'll put it like this: there's no new note, and I didn't answer much in the chat as well. I tried to puzzle why is the fiddle is the choice of instrument for the devil. Right? So why is that association made over any other instrument? Well, there's no fretboards on it. It's a fretboard on the guitar. So anywhere I put my finger here, I'm limited to this range of string vibration in terms of length, right? So when I put my finger here, it stops it at this fret. So when I play this, I'm getting to hear this length of string vibrating, right? So that's fine. I am then divided increments, do to do, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I'm restricted by these set increments, whereas the fiddle, well, you're free to go through all range of frequencies, and ultimately everything is about frequency. You remember a few shows ago I went into the bathroom? It's a fascinating sound. It really is. Like, I mean, maybe it came across, maybe it didn't. I should imagine it might have come across better, actually. Um, listen, I didn't listen back to it, but just putting it against a tile bathtub and just sort of giving it impetus at the top, just allowing it to vibrate. Something rings to the core, and it's not in a bad way, but yeah, everything ultimately being about frequency and vibration within certain frequencies. Um, yeah, well, and within within and without, and everything is sort of interconnected as well. So, well, when we come to flat Earth, there's so much beyond, and because the story is already pre-written, it's sort of insane to for the individual, I think, anyway. Uh, I've been doing this for years now, too many years, but it's insane to think that you're stuck at the same point because, as I say, it seems to me then you missed the point. And where do you go from here? That's down to you, the individual. We've been given all of these facilities. You choose about you. I pointed out many times you get the thumbs up or the thumbs down. If you look at the center of your keyboard, there you have coming out at an X, the center. I mean, is it just my keyboard? It's not. I know it's not perfectly an X, but it's the closest thing you can get to the X at the very center. The H at the center, first of all. It's all designed a certain way, all the numbers and letters, all the words were whole close developed, right? So, not to get diverted into that, these are some of the other things we have to sort of leave behind or else definitely reconsider. What is the nature of our Earth here? What is our true history? What is the development of music, languages? Where does it stem from? How far back can we go before we sort of put on the brakes and say, well, everything beyond this is going to require serious scrutiny because we've encountered so much fabricated history in our own times ourselves, that, these are obviously to the front considerations as individuals. So, yeah, as I have decided, everything is delivered whole cloth. So within the structure themselves, within the letter chosen, well, therein lies the significance. Words have significance, but the words are composed of letters. So you might say a wall has significance. But if you don't say a brick has significance, then the wall, each brick has significance, then the wall and its final form, well, flounders, right? It has no ultimate significance itself without being defined in terms of its core constituents, its core component parts. So yeah, it's the same with words and letters, and then we look at the sound first of all, and then we look at the structure attached to it. Then we have H in the center, H human. But yeah, just U2, all these things were given to us in the center of your keyboard. There we have the H. On the diagonal, we have the T and the M, and on the other diagonal, we have the U and the B. That's an anagram of thumb. It jumps right out at you, your thumb. Thumb up, thumb down. Now that goes back to well, the opposable thumb, right, which allowed the advancement of the kind in terms of evolutionary theory. It's all metaphor. The truth is there, so the story is pre-written. So what can we gain? What can we garner from the facts that are presented to us? Well, that's where it's down to you and your individuality. So yeah, just like all of the letters are written, all of the words, all of the thoughts are there. If the thoughts are based on, well, that's a good one. Tell me what the thoughts ultimately are based on. How do you control the thoughts? Well, you control the child, right? You control the potential. So yeah, all of these restrictions are put into place. But what you can do, as with a song, any song at all that you create is a beautiful song, because it won't have existed before in its particular order. Right, so that's what we can do as individuals, add our own distinctive well, wonder, potential wonder to everything. It's all wonderful. Everything is wonderful when when we simplify everything, when we think about everything. Um, but yeah, it's getting to think about everything, I guess. And well, as I mentioned, more and more people are getting to consider other possibilities, and the way is sort of purposefully being prepared, right? So, what lies at the end? Here we are on, well, it's just changed half an hour ago to 2919, so it was 1919. I'm going to talk about 9/11 tonight. So I'm just going to talk for a while. Nothing particular to say. I pretty much said everything, but I brush over the basics, right? I just assume you're at the stage that you know it's or at least you know that I know it, or that's the position I'm coming from, is that it's a media and a victim hoax, right? So to be taken literally, we will get immersed and drowned almost in all of the different controversies and conspiracies ingrained within the narrative. But to see through the literal, now we can, as opposed to just discarding it and screaming from the rooftops that 9/11 was a media fake extravaganza, which I've been doing for years to many, many different people, and some people took it differently than others. It's resulted in me getting, I don't know, to dramatize things. Everything's fucking calm. Everything, there's no danger or anything. There's just this is the way it goes, right? But it ended up getting me banned from a few different pubs, including my local pub in Ennis. As in an interesting story. I wasn't trying to offend anyone. I was just trying to point out where I was at. And after believing all of the different stories, but a bunch of Americans happened to be in the pub itself. And now I think 9/11 came up, and of course I was going to say something, so I just jumped in, and yeah, people suspected some things untoward, and the usual, the usual. You're sort of, if you don't, after investigation, even cursory investigation, understand that 9/11 is an inside job of some sort. Everything is not what it says on the tin. Well, we haven't been paying any attention at all. It's a dog with a mallet of desires. We'd be able to see it, in other words. So we've been set led by the nose ring. Um, so, yeah, once you further that research, as far as I can see now, the only place you're ending up is just from all sides. You've been encouraged to think that way, but the only way you're ending up is a media hoax, and we're all meant to end up there. But when you say that to people at the time, especially a bunch of Americans who will give some level of leeway in terms of conspiracy, but not to that degree. No, no, that's the shock horror part of it. Well, before you know it, someone knew someone, and then everyone's around comforting the guy who's pretty stalwart and holding his shit together in light of this horrendous imposition. So that sort of thing. But the funny thing was, I would have, I just, okay, but let's take it easy. Not personal. I don't mean to blah blah blah. Let's break it up. So I went up for a drink anyway, and that was the end of it. They were grand. They went away, continued on with their night. I went up for a drink. You're not getting served. I said, "What? Not getting served?" Someone said you were disturbing some of the customers out there. I wasn't disturbing anyone. A little bit of disagreement and all that, but I ended up having to piss off home. Couldn't get another drink at my local pub that I've been going to for years. That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. But anyway, these are things we have to sort of encounter and overcome. And I'm not going to change my tune. If I get talking to anybody or any company and 9/11 comes up, I'll even bring it up in some way or another. But I'm going straight ultimately to 9/11 media fakery. And if someone reacts a certain way, that's fine. I'm used to that. Won't push it at the same time, but I'll phrase it in a certain way, just an honest way. And then look, I went through this sort of process, and this is where you sort of, if you follow all of the different things laid down, if you all the different clues, etc., this is where you necessarily must end up. And well, that's the shocking part. more shocking than ever is the number of flat earthers who were opposed to 9/11, Libya, and victim pickery. And I think I know why now. So I suspect all the people, pretty much all the people who've been put into place, acting their part, whatever that part may be, right? But that there are parts, of course, is undoubtable. Um, but yeah, privy to some sort of greater story or greater secret. And people like, and I was only talking to him yesterday. I said, like yesterday on Ranty's Flat, I can confound George Hatnock in with simple questions, and I confounded him on air last night. If you weren't not saying anything, I was just on for chat rather than talking to these characters. But I gave him a scenario, and he was confounded. Right, it showed up his whole position as ridiculous, and that's it. The globe was ended. Right, so we know the globe is not as described. It's not spinning. It is not a globe to begin with. Right. So what is the greater story? What can we garner from what is presented to us, if we understand that it's all scripted and it's all a greater series of clues. The lie is built on the truth. This is the way it has to work, right? Where might that take us? And these are the things that are left up, I suppose, more so to the individual. If you think about it in terms of an audience and a catering sort of role, then the people who are in position at the minute doing what they do, they're a pretty good job in it. Anyone coming into flat Earth, uh, you know, you're not leaving it. You're not leaving it if you take it semi seriously. And just wonder, actually, if I was to put, if you were to push me on it, out of all the people I've mentioned flat Earth to, I've had various degrees of discussion about it. I was only talking to someone the other evening, a guy from, where did he say he was from? Algeria. Algeria. A 5-minute conversation just down by the river, passing. Um, but he said something surprising to me. I must look into it actually. Didn't know him from Adam, and his English was good enough, but not excellent, but it was good enough. And we started talking about a few things. But of course, I got flat Earth in, and he said, "Ah, you're like one of the." So Algeria, I'm just trying to place it on there. So it's northern Africa, is it northwestern Africa, as far as I remember. We were closer to, yeah, south of Spain, south west of Spain. I'm thinking somewhere around there, but possibly a bit more south than that. But he immediately said, "Oh, you're like one." I'm not sure what he was referring to, but I think it was the United Arab Emirates. And I said, "Well, they're not. They're known as a nation for being flat earthers. Is that right?" And he's going, "Yeah." And even he was talking about it in the Quran. There's a big section of Muslims in general who hold that the Earth is flat. And I said, "What do you think about that, Brad?" He's going, "I think it's all ridiculous." He said, "We have satellites and all this sort of stuff." I'm not going to go back believing that. It's very interesting he said that as well, that the universe comes out of Allah's arsehole. And that's apparently that's the way it's written. I don't know anything this. He just said that. I was going, "What?" He said, "Yeah, well, this is the story." It was removed on from it there, but I was thinking about, well, often pointed out, anus is an anagram of a sun. Now, there's no disconnecting internal from the external, because one is a reflection of the other. And the way I think about it is we are greater beings here, right? So we've entered this sort of greater puzzle, this greater experience within the vision. So it's coming to these recognitions, these realizations, these associations, these relationships, right? That, well, we can piece things together. It will allow for the piecing of things together. So when you literally took, so when you take things literally, right? So we've got everything befuddled and confused. When you start taking things literally, then you start imagining Allah and the universe coming out of his arsehole. But when you think about it in a different sense, you can look into that. That'd be something to look into or develop upon further. Allah, all A-H, right? All A-H. Remember I pointed out about the H pointing upwards with the A, and then we have the T downwards. We have the V, the W, the L, right? So are these fundamental divides. So I was thinking about, just as I mentioned, all all AH. I was thinking about the word, and as I was thinking about it, I had long since listed this Messiah, Messiss, right? AH at the end as well. So what does the AH represent? Well, as I say, human, the heart center. We have the tree part, triptych, the three divides, right? The immaterial, the material, and then the bridge, the heart center. And well, everything must go through the heart. And all AH, well, we take the upper tendency, the upper leaning, as opposed to, well, the lower leaning. So it's AH or it's HL. Do you want to go to hell? Hell has been stuck in the material forever and ever and ever because, well, we're not the material. So yeah, it's about getting that context straight in one's own brain. And, probably everyone here listening tonight mightn't be able to relate to that. And but I'm not saying that, but I don't know what your own personal thoughts are on your own sort of existence, and exactly what I'm saying here as well, and how it rings with you. So I can only speak for myself, but yeah, in a grander sense, we can all relate to these component parts of our being. The thing that I have an asterisk in my mind to look definitely much further into is this possibility of our gut grand unifying theory, our gut being an inside out brain. So we have a divided brain, but it's only half a brain. So where's the other half? Well, it could be with the woman, right? So the woman half and half is, well, it's perfect, isn't it? Because I've said that loads of times. When people say, how is one and one, what's one and one? Two. No, it's not, it's three. How do you mean one and one is three? Well, you have one man, one woman, and one child. So one and one is three. Well, so later in life, I realized the math is wrong. It's a half plus a half equals one. So similar with the brain, the man's brain and the woman's brain together brings the two demi-hemispheres together, and then the two hemispheres together to give the whole. And well, if we take me as a male, if I don't externalize it and take divide it and divide it again, we are. So if I just leave myself into the equation, am I divided within that divide? Well, through the heart. Can I find the other half of my brain? My brain's in my pants, that's what they say, right? Or shit for brains. That's a good one, isn't it? Shit for brain. So imagine our stomach, our intestinal tract, and everything, that whole system was an inside-out brain, and we were feeding it with well, the worst things possible to take it away from its true functionality and its true connectivity. I think this is definitely a lot to do with it, and especially when you think about how fasting plays such a pivotal role. Even the word fast itself, F-A-S-T, yeah. So that's definitely yeah. As I say, I'm a shit researcher, but that's only one to put a lot more thought into. Mad as it sounds, right? Mad as it sounds, it doesn't matter anymore. It's all fucking mad. It's all just, it's all one degree of madness sort of gives way to the next degree of madness or insanity. But I think should we not have been able to handle it, well, we wouldn't be here in the first place, or the game of life wouldn't have been constructed. So before I go into chat, I'm just going to have a cigarette here. I'm going to just say a few things. So it's going to be about 9/11. I'm just trying to restrict but then again, it's so interconnected, right? But specifically, I won't be delving into any of the proofs at this stage, and I could talk for ages about that. that show the alert, or show those who are paying attention that you're dealing with a theatrical presentation here that has deeper significance. That deeper significance, well, entwined within the greater narrative or the greater script of your life and your existence. You, the individual. Here we are on YouTube. So yeah, that's how I got back onto thumb. So thumb being in the center, thumb backwards, right? So thumb up or thumb down. If you turn thumb backwards, right, or down, you get BMUHT. If you read that out, BMUT, BMUT, that is a reference to behemoth, behemoth, right? What is that? Be, he, me, TH. So again, we have the TH reference. But yeah, I only mention that because all of the, well, even from me going on here tonight, live streaming, go live, you go live, question mark, going live, you are live. Well, in the context of God, devil, God backwards, start the devil connected to, start the new word connected to the backwards D of God, EVIL, go devil with the theta in the center, right? The TH in the center. Actually, I forgot about that now, just to replace the two D. So we have GOTHEVIL. I'm looking to that now. See, goth, of course, the goth, of course, jumps out immediately, but I need to look at it both ways. And draw these, if you're doing it yourself, draw these letters in a circle. Draw the word in a circle, and see if any connection might jump out at you. But let me just have a cigarette, and as I just before going to chat, let me ask the question: where do you stand on 9/11? I mean, at this stage, it's such a dirty topic, and that's what I started talking about. That's a dirty topic. I think it has to be. It's the way I think about it. It has to be. It's an individual journey. So the story applies to all of us. So you, as an individual, have the ability to recognize this. To recognize that whatever experience you're going through here is not at all what like you ever thought it was, like you ever embraced. So where do you go from here? As I say, if you're still in flat earth all this amount of time later and you just got stuck on the basics, I suppose you definitely would have been better off not to get stuck into it, even though everybody is bound on that train. Um, shit, well, friends, pay attention. Many times I say, pay attention to the clouds. 2.8, I just thought of you. I was having a cigarette if you're in chat here. I feel like, man, you got to pay attention to the clouds. Um, um, all of these different formations that are expressed, well, mostly we get to see them via Google Earth, right? But they're expressed in the terrain. Um, they all adhere to a pattern. These are just many of the areas. It's something I didn't go back to in ages now, just the stuff I found about Google Earth. Fascinating stuff, and it's just trying to connect everything into a fractal expression or to see it that way. Certain patterns are consistently showing up. So 2.88, if you haven't been paying attention to your local cloud patterns or your local sky, well, you definitely should, right? And any of the patterns you have come to recognize, see if you can match them up with any of the cloud patterns. One of the things that just to say this is what do you call it? But and I only saw it the other day. I said, there you go again. The pillars of creation. That image to show the clouds, right? The star clouds, the formation of universes or most of not universes, stars, galaxies, etc. The pillars of creation, that famous Hubble image. That's a pattern in the clouds, friends. Go and find it now. Go and find it. So that's just another thing that I should fucking be putting all my time into. Really, imagine you could prove that categorically. I think that can be proven categorically as well. But interesting exercise for yourself, right? Go and see. Go and what clues can you find from the clouds? Where can you find um, your next piece in this grander puzzle? These things are not difficult to do. You don't have to travel across the world to see someone else's clouds. You can't see in your own clouds. That's where I'm at now. And the same repeating patterns that you see, same circular bands that the clouds form and that you see in a dynamic sense, well, they are the same patterns that I see. And the great sculptor, I suppose, in one sense, is the sun, right? The sun. Well, everything is much more up close and personal in our flat Earth reality. And well, I guess it's all about all of these different things. I'm talking very superficially over, and just come back to the basic questions that we all are probably here for to ask, right? Which is, well, what is Earth? Who am I? Finding out all of this, well, disturbing information in a sense about my existence here within this greater confine we call Earth. So, yeah. So before I just what I saw a scorpion. I swear. What can I say? It was like I have no camera. I have to start taking the camera with me. But as I was up in the hill singing away and everything, I sang a couple of songs, and one of them was looking towards Limerick, and another one I was looking towards sort of the setting sun. It had just gone down over we're in the distance anyway, and the sort of the bigger hill in adjacent was blocking off most of it, but you could see it sort of a little bit shining through the thick enough, low enough cloud. I'm going to Anyway, that's a different thing too. But yeah, as I finished the song and looked up, what did I see in the a scorpion? If you were there yourself, you'd say that's a scorpion, Pete. I said, I know, man. I told you, that's a scorpion, and don't know what significance, but you could literally see the crab body with the tail coming out directly where I was singing as well. And as I was singing, these sort of crepuscular rays came. The rest of the back set was all sort of dull and faded over, sort of one of those type of days. But it's that. No, I didn't feel anything like. I must say, wondrous or deep inside, which I did on a few different occasions. But no, not there, but just to see that pattern itself. It was definitely a scorpion with the tail up itself. And I swear I see a star in the tail. I swear I see it. It was that distinct, really. But yeah, just looked out the window there. fucking dragon. Would you believe it? Would you believe it? It's mad. It's a dragon. It's a fucking. It's a dragon in sort of in motion as well. So it's like in a dive going across the sky. Mad stuff, isn't that? All of these different patterns are. I haven't seen that now, and it's all about the perspectives of. I haven't seen that in that before. Yeah, typical. Completely gone. Completely fucking gone. That's impossible. The whole fucking cloud. The whole cloud is taking up the whole back of the. It's impossible. Just completely gone. The whole fucking thing. The massive cloud, but for all the world, it was a dragon head, sort of in a spiraling, sort of dive downwards like that. So I see a dragon. So let me just note that anyway. A dragon and a scorpion. Let me consider that how that might apply in some way or another. But yeah, as we move on, how many of you are at that point? If you're not at that point, I'm going to say about that. If you're not at that point, I'm thinking none of the stuff that I talk about will make any sense. I think. And I don't think it's that hard to get to that point of 9/11 media fakery. If you're just hearing it, media and victim fakery, complete, absolutely complete. No one died in 9/11. No one died. You don't. If you kill one, you must have killed 10. And people say, well, they could have got rid of people that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but they could also just fucking get rid of them in a much easier way. And if you have so many people, and it does take a lot of people, organized and in on the deception, well, you can get thousands of people to go along with a mass hoax. All you have to do is give them the right motivations, So whatever whatever the organizer's motivations, architect's motivations, you can feed. Well, look, we can think of many different possibilities, but you won't be able to sell people mass murder. Sell them in a mass hoax. Yeah, you cooperate in that if you give them sufficient enough reasons for this dastardly deception against the fellow man. But you just can't do it with mass murder. You won't get anybody to join on board. And even if you did, yeah, just the human form, guilt, conscience would wear anyone who to participate in such a deception down over time. So no, that is not the nature of this game. So I hope that most of you in the chat, if there's anyone in the chat at all, I don't even know. I could be talking to myself. I could have forgot to press the live button even though I didn't. But yeah, are most of you at that stage at least? Will you say that? I mean, it seems to be something that people are afraid to come out and are reluctant to come out and talk about, especially flat earthers. It should be the first thing flat earthers to talk about. Now I say that most especially because I realize the symbolic significance of 9/11. Well, to some degree, it was the first no plane argument. Right? This is the argument we're in Wisconsin at the minute, plane or no plane, globe or flat Earth. How significant is it then when, we recognize the association between the original no planer from 9/11, Nico Haupt, and historical revisionism in the form of his Google 1649-ish tome of work, which not that I know much about it. I looked a bit into it, and I just said, well, that's fucking typical, isn't it? That's just another thing to tick off the list. History now is a load of bunk and bollocks. So how far can you go back? Well, that Nico Haupt, being a part of the no planer, the original no planer, talks about this. Very significant indeed. So 1649-ish, no primary, to cut to the chase, no primary sourced material predates or can be found to predate this year, but could be found by the author anyway. That's an amazing thing to consider. That's an amazing thing to consider. That, as we've come from ball Earth to flat Earth, we've left these vast swathes of time behind, right? We've left the Earth's evolutionary time scale behind 4.5 billions, millions even years. We deny dinosaurs, etc. As I pointed out many times, the Bible literalists are waiting at the door and they're saying, look, we don't have to lose everything in terms of time. We still got 6,000 years for you, buddy. So that's some sort of a comfort blanket. But look, let's get a bit deeper again, many different layers. And with each successive layer, you come closer to the truth, I think, but it becomes a little bit more fiendish. And I guess ultimately you have to dig deep down and do away with all of your preconceived and deeply held, all of them, biases before you can see, well, the true light. The true light. So 1649-ish tells me, well, that's where I'm at the minute. You know that. This is what the story tells. The story of the non-existent dodo bird, but exists, and the dodo as a concept exists in absolute terms, right? It has an absolute basis in reality. But yeah, 1649-ish was 51. That's funny. Well, 52 years inclusive, right? Away from 1598, when the dodo was disc covered, right? So it's funny, it's 52. The volume here is on 52 as well. 52 cards in a deck of cards. 4 13s, 2 26s, 26 letters in the alphabet. So yeah, I'll go into chat now. Let me just 1 second. Yeah, so that's just a question to throw out. If you haven't come this far, I don't know what to say to you. I don't. Yeah, it would be a waste of time. It would just be literally a waste of time. You would not me talking. It'd be literally a waste of time. Someone listening to me. I mean, I'm scattered, gone all over the place to begin with. But I mean, you definitely shouldn't be listening to this. That'll just make it harder listening because it won't make any sense to you. Because, well, I'm going to say you haven't followed your nose, you haven't followed the clues, and you haven't, I don't know, shown enough interest maybe. The great thing is that that's easily rectified. You don't have to go through the tomes and tomes of work, of information presented over the years in conspiracy forums like Let's Roll Forum and Clues Forum, which specifically deal with, fakeologists.com as well, specifically deal with media fakery, events, non-events, or investigations. So yeah, all of these things are there for you and in detail. But if you want to foreshorten that and you just want to cut straight to the chase, I think you can easily do that. I think it would take about a week for everyone on Earth to get on board 9/11 being a media victim hoax. All you have to do is just watch appropriate videos. So if you want to get to the truth, which was presented to you, well, your sort of shortcut to it is just in your YouTube search, type in 9/11 victim hoax, 9/11 media hoax. Then get over your disbelief, your cognitive dissonance. You were told that, well, the Matrix, especially the Matrix. Yeah, another one. I have to come back to with Neo, the one, Trinity, right? 3 in 1, and Morpheus, right? So Morpheus, Trinity, and Neo. So we have the 3 in 1: the Father, Morpheus, the Son, which is Neo, and Trinity then is the Holy Ghost, right, or Holy Spirit. 3 in 1. Why is Morpheus the Father? Well, look up Morpheus. Look up the Greek mythological sort of origins of this character Morpheus. A little clue for us there. Let me But yeah, we were prepared with that. But in 1999, I think the Matrix came out. So what is real? What what more so? What is our perception of what is real? And when 9/11 came along, we were well prepped for it for years. Well, if you haven't come to it, if you haven't come to the truth of it by now, well, then you will. It's only a matter of time. So if you have that desire for the truth, well, as I say, my best tip to you ever, if you haven't come across this idea before, rather than going through all the particulars, just go on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever and type in 9/11 media fake 9/11 victim. The house of cards will tumble pretty much immediately for you because you'll eventually come to see that it's, hang on, this is all the too sloppy, It's almost as if it's written to be exposed or seen through, much like much of the NASA stuff, right? SpaceX, for goodness sake, or the Lucifer telescope, that's another good one. As if, these secret organizations who want to remain sort of incognito and give this superficial veneer to everything they do. Well, they would. Someone would pull up and say, "Hang on, maybe we shouldn't do that, even though we serve the great Lord. Uh, maybe we shouldn't do that. We do it a different name." But no, it's not. That's not how it happens. Okay, sorry about that. Well, no, sorry about that. That needed to be done. Um, yeah, it's so convoluted. Just thinking, I mean, just I could do with a break from just thinking. Um, what I was thinking was where to start on 9/11, right? Well, that has to be the place to start. So we see beyond the literal. Some clues are loaded within the narrative, within the visuals, within the words written. NIST report, and is T. All of these things are chosen specifically because it's all working towards the same revelation, I suppose. Um, and it's a pretty positive, well, no more positive revelation can you get. And if it's all incorporated within the script, well, so be it. So be it. It's there for us to find out and figure. And if not, well, it's there for no one to find out and figure. Um, People like David Weiss, direct witnesses to 9/11, they're in the Judy Wood camp, right? He's in the Judy Wood camp, even though he accepts so much. And he was on Blowbusters tonight, where they've accepted gravity. Jaron has had to. I listened in for a bit, not for a whole, for a while, not too long, because it's more the same sort of stuff as well. These are all people put in place to keep gates, right? So the people will not talk about the things that they should be talking about, and that's very suspicious in itself. And I do think it's necessary, or I can see how it might be necessary if it is all an individual's journey here. So you can only be helped so far along the way. You must eventually write your own song, right? Um, piece your own pieces together, and yeah. Well, gravity seems to be sorted now. It's been proven that we have this pushing force from above. Now, what the nature of that pushing force is, that doesn't. And my reckoning is, it will not be investigated, or much progress won't be made along those lines. Because why? Well, the nature of the barrier won't be taken into consideration. They don't want to lead you to the trap, to sort of lead yourself to the trap and drink away. And yeah, it's when you consider the nature of the barrier, then you have to consider the source. And when you consider the source, well, then you're honing in on, well, the prime cause. And well, it's there for us to hone in on as individuals. But we can't be sort of said and led there completely. We have to be challenged. And every step of the way, you will find people put in place to keep the gate. So regarding 9/11, yeah, every flat earther should be talking about the 9/11 media and victim hoax. So name them. You can name them on one hand, the number of flat earthers that talk about it. Really, you could. Brian Staveley is one. You might have heard of Brian, but I know Brian ages ago. He was talking about it back then. He didn't seem to have moved on beyond the literal, or pointing out the literal hoax, right, to the greater significant symbolic um, overarching symbolic significance to it all. But I shouldn't say that as well. As far as I'm aware, that's the situation. But yeah, Brian Savey is one. IPS was another. Remember, IPS heavily promoted across the scene. Came in all guns blazing on all fronts. And yeah, he was one to talk about the 9/11 media and victims. But he never went into any detail. He never posted any links, really. It was just coming from his point of view and how he could see how they might do it that way, and all of this, So again, another character, and we take what we will, and we leave the rest. But when we have that proper context down, as we should do, then we have to see into the deeper symbolic significance. So we had 9/11 taking place at the Material Center, the Big Apple Material Center of the world, right? And what we remember primarily of that day, although there's much more to remember, is, well, the two towers falling at free fall speed. So the two pillars at the material center of the Earth, the spinning globe, are taken down free fall speed, unbirthed, if you will. And we jump forward years later, where the two become one, which is what's called now the World Trade Tower. No, not the World Trade Tower. It's number one World Trade Center, isn't it? Our Freedom Tower. Freedom Tower. So we have the dough again. What does the dough or the dome mean? When I was thinking about, uh, I see, you won't be able to relate to this, but getting to the greater symbolic significance, right? Sirius, and has a major part to play in 9/11. When you turn the lights out on 9/11, when the first tower that fell, which was the second tower that was hit, we had this crossover, right? Stressed. When that fell, well, when viewed from Washington Park, right, which is nearby park, and an archway there in resemblance to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, well, when viewed through that archway, at the exact moment that the first tower fell, which was the second one that was hit, well, so was number tower two fell first. They crossed these over purposefully, right? So this is all telling you the greater story. The division is okay. The division is well at an end, but when viewed through the Park, Washington Square Park Arch, I think it's called. Yeah, at that very instant that the tower was falling, the first tower was falling, well, Sirius, if you turn the lights out, Sirius would have been directly overhead when viewed from that particular spot. There's a particular significance to that, and that's all detailed in some of these deeper links that you can find. I posted the links, and I even read from that link a few times. But why Sirius? Well, Sirius, Sirius, right? SIRI and U are S. So we're in that divided state. This is what the S represents. The S is the divided 8, right? The 8 then is the twisted 0. So we're divided and we're divided again. Male from female, self from self. So self within self. This is what it's representing, and 9/11 representing the ending of that division. With well, what brought so many people into 9/11 thinking, 9/11 conspiracy thinking, I should say. Well, Building 7, the Solomon buildings. Well, Solomon's anagram of Sol and Moon, right? Sun and Moon. Why is that connection made? Well, Aristarchus, right? The sun is the moon is a reflection of the sun, but everything comes back to one primary source. So the way I think it works now is that the Aristarchus, Polaris reflects the rest of the sky, right? And then we have its primary reflection, which is the sun. The sun reflects the moon, and the moon then reflects the rest of the planets. So everything else then revolves around the sun. So everything revolves around Polaris. But then we have the revolutions. Of course, the Earth is still at the center. The ground we're on is still anyway. Everything else then is revolving around the sun. And yeah, when we look at at Sirius, right? So that's my mind is just jumping back to. I've of course, described Aristarchus as Mount Meru or Yggdrasil. It's the same thing as the Tree of Life. It's the decapitated Tree of Life. This is what we remember at Christmas time. It's a literal thing, right? As well as a symbolic and a personal thing. Everything's connected. But when we look at the word Meru, Mount Meru itself, MERU, so me are you. So we are the same, we're all the same kind. So the same thing is sort of, that's why I think Sirius has that prominent role, just for the letters within the word itself. The star itself, right? RI, star, cus. All stars are the one star, so we have a primary, well, divided source emanating, and then we have its expression. And everything that we experience, everything that we live under, everything that we're part of comes from this primary source, right? Which is in a divided state. But this is what 9/11 represented 100 years after, well, 89 years, right? 100 years after the Titanic symbolic hoax. Well, we had 2012. So you remember that sort of symbolic upheaval. Well, maybe it did take place. And as I mentioned the last time, when I look back in it now, it has to have taken place with me as well because of what happened a short month afterwards. So, yeah, that's 100 years to when the division symbolically began, 1912, with the Titanic, where two became one, Titan IC. So we have fallen from a prior height, a prior state, and the Earth has fallen from a prior state. So, yeah, then comes 9/11, which is the completion. It's two become one again. So to the Titanic was one become two, right? So the ship divided into two parts after hitting an iceberg, we're told. So yeah, 9/11 then two becoming one. So the two pillars of division, the material center of the universe, are unbirthed, and birthed in its place is the unified whole. If you look at this external structure of uh, one trade center. So I'm just going to Freedom Tower, Free Tower, Domi. So God is God, God. Odin is in Od. Body is Bodi. So what does this Od represent? Well, again, remember I mentioned God, devil, the O, and you put the backwards D with the forwards D, understanding that God and the devil are the same, right? It's the same thing. If the devil existed, God has to have created the devil. So God divided himself in two, if you want to put it like that. But we have that potential within us to go to the very depths, right? The very bowels. So it's a good example of a bowel. So we're talking about the different divisions, but the bowel representing the lowly parts, the material parts, right? Or we can go to the very heights, the very top, right? The very pinnacle. Um, yeah, so it's that division within, and well, we must come through the heart. Everything has to go through the heart, and yeah, that's what I see as the greater significance is to all of this. It's too sort of much to get into detail. As I said, I didn't come on for any detail. I don't like doing that. I don't even like doing it now. I'm just sort of really from thinking really. But I was thinking about JFK. I had an interesting thought today. JFK, and I was talking about the Matrix and Neo being the Jesus-like character, with Morpheus being the father, Jesus being the son, right? The material. So the Jesus, the son, born into the material world. We have to make our way towards a greater realization of self and origins. Um, but JFK, the king of the king. So a King Arthur association. Arthur is Arthur. So Arthur became king by taking the sword from the stone. Sword is the S word. It is, right. This is how much power the sword has, right? It is what we say is. If we have that ability to create, to manifest, right? And if we are misusing it or we don't recognize that ability, well, the word is, or to be or not to be, right? That's a very powerful weapon, a very powerful tool. Um, Definitely, in potential anyway that we're not aware of. And, we can appreciate that when we think in terms of the heliocentric or the spinning ball model of the universe that we said was, right? This is the situation. So we gave it a reality. Now, if it actually had no reality, and you put so much power into giving it a reality, so much belief, right? Well, then we can see just how much power, how much of a powerful weapon it actually is, right? So to take the sword from the stone is when to know when to wield the sword. What is, Bill Clinton said, it depends on what the meaning of the word is. Well, if we just even break down the word is, then we have I, S. I am in this divided state. S is 2, a value of 2 in code dodo. Perfect, right? It looks like a 2. You combine the S with the backwards S, you get the 8, right? When you untwist the 8, you get 0. So these are all connecting I guess thought to flesh concepts, because this is what our body entails, isn't it? It's not just the material. It's all of the component aspects, and well, we're coming to remember, um, well, our origins. I think this is the way it's written, right? It's it's the great game of life after all. So the puzzle pieces are there. The breadcrumbs are set for you, Hansel and Gretel. Beware the wicked witch, right? Or the wicked witch is nothing to fear. Um, so yeah, just what I was thinking about JFK and yeah, Count Ada in in um, in Irish or head wound. So that also had me thinking about revelations and some, I don't study it much, but talking about a head wound and the wound recovers, or the victim recovers. Um, I should read that now again, actually. But anyway, JFK, of course, his head was blown off by a head wound, back into the left, back into the left. And well, Ceann Éire is head wound in Irish. So when we think about the associations made between JFK, once we get down to the conspiracy pathway, and Jimmy Carter, well, there we have, there we have JC, right? So JFK was reincarnated, in a sense, resurrected as Jimmy Carter, right? So there we have JC. Now, when we think about, just to say as well, JFK, when we just each number just associate them naturally. Each number, J is a 10, F is 6, and K is 11. When you invert it, right, turn back to front, there you have 11, 9, 0, 1, which is, well, in Ireland, if JFK was Irish, that would be September 2001. Isn't it funny now that Jesus, the birth of Jesus in conspiracy land as well, is given as this possible date, 11th of September 2000, not 2001, 11th of September anyway. And this is what 9/11 was all about, just in further mocking of the Messiah of Jesus. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, isn't that interesting now? And so just as I was talking about 9/11, looking through the Washington Park Arch, and at the moment that the first tower fell, well, Sirius was above it, directly above it. At the moment the second tower fell, Sirius was directly above it as well, 20 or 30 minutes later. It's as if they waited for the passage there. And yeah, all symbolic, of course, all symbolic. And well, yeah, the disassociation has the end of bifurcation, right? So we have the unbirthing is the best way I can think of putting it, of the divided state. And once again, jump forward years later, well, the rebirthing of the unified form. Um, yeah, shit. I'm trying to sort of put it in the proper context. The Statue of Liberty plays a prominent part as well when viewed from the Washington Arch. In the case of not in case of in relation to the triangle form between the Statue of Liberty, the Twin Towers, and the archway itself. But the Statue of Liberty has the eternal flame. I talked about the original eternal flame in Paris, Polaris, Paris. We have, yeah, to remember JFK. Well, I can't bring up images now, but yeah, bring it up yourself. Just type in JFK's Eternal Flame Memorial. Another 9/11 connection via the Statue of Liberty. I've talked about that so many times. It's a reflection of Aristarchus and Herodotus, right? The neighboring crater with the eternal flame coming up the center. But there at, I think it's Arlington Cemetery at JFK's eternal flame, JFK 9/11, backwards 01, the killing of the king. King Arthur, the head wound, well, coming back as JC, Jimmy Carter, who's still alive today with his wife Rosalind, RC, Roman Catholic, JC, RC, JC, Roman Catholic, Jesus Christ. But Eternal Flame, JFK Memorial, that'll do you in a Google search. And, well, what do you see? I know what I see, bud. I know what I see. I know what I see all day long. That's a crater. You're looking at a crater. That's a crater with a fiery center, or a flame, an eternal flame center. And more particularly, it's a moon crater. It's a reference to a moon crater. And well, there's only one moon crater. We just haven't realized we're in a hole of mirrors, right? So everything is sort of splintered everywhere. So we've become discombobulated and disorientated, but our heads are clearing. So that crater, well, you tell me otherwise. Why such a meager? Meager, yeah, it's all about humility, isn't it? Why such a meager memorial for one of the most famous presidents, most famous men in history? Yeah, all symbolic, and well, all ultimately connecting to 9/11. 9/11 about being about two becoming one. Well, 9/11 or 11/9 brings us to 1/9, and here we are in year 1/9. We just left the 1/9/19 behind. Yeah. Since the last show, or since the last little chat I do here, 11, sorry, what is it, 9, 11, yeah, 9/11/19. 9/11/19 now is a date. First of all, it's mirrored, right? So it's pivoted around the central one, but that's November 9/11. So all this fucking mirroring and the different sort of date systems are done purposefully, not to confuse, but to sort of unravel eventually. But yeah, 9/11 is the 9th of November. That's how if that was written down there, I'd say, well, that's the 9th of November. So 9/11/19, where we have palindromic, we have the same backwards as forwards and mirror through the center. It's a very interesting date as well, but yeah, it all has to be pointing towards a finale, a grand finale. That's why everybody is doing what they're doing. At this stage, I'm sorry. I mean, it's a terrible presentation here. If you're listening, I'm sorry. You know, I don't expect many people to be listening, but even myself at this stage, no matter what I listen to, I'm finding it's more of the same, and I sort of resign myself to it as well, understanding that everything is sort of paved, the whole pathway it's paved, and you as the one player are always meant to see through the aids, the obstacles, the gates, the gatekeepers, etc., and well, follow your own pathway. You have all the time in the world to let your brain soar. Yeah, so I'm just thinking we have to sort of understand what's going on within, what's going on in our bodies, our BODIs, right? And that just brought me to think about the body of science, that term that's thrown around, most especially by the likes of the Ruggles. The body of science. Again, the body of signs, right? Signs everywhere. Right before me, the signs implore me. We haven't been paying attention. It's not that we haven't been paying attention. We, we didn't have the proper context. The time wasn't right. Time wasn't right. Now everything is well, and when everything is deadly, where do we go from here? How do you? What sort of? Well, just personally, I mean, what do I aim at? What do I? How do you go? How can you go back to any sort of standard of normality? What do you strive towards in this frame of mind? Not even my own personal frame of mind, just a conspiracy frame of mind in the first place. So I think they're all greater challenges to be overcome, sure of it. But when the simplest things can get, or at least can give you the answers, and it was spoken about many times, the clouds are so revealing, they're so wondrous. They're so wondrous, but they're so revealing in many different ways. And the biggest way being that these repeating patterns are an expression of something, right? So it can bring us back to a greater cause. And consider everything above. Well, ultimately, consider everything above has been part of everything below, everything connected. But yes, that divided state that we are constantly reminded we're in, needing to be overcome. And that's what the last century was about. In one sense, it was like going through that process, that division, turmoil, the 100 years of war, fake war, as it turns out, for the most part, reconnection, rebirthing, right back into unification. So that cycle. What the 100 years is about, I'm not sure. Maybe like again, it's a construct, right? It's a construct. I don't know. Anything is possible. So they could, within the greater upheaval, or it could be just switcheroo every 100 years or so. So the next three generations have to figure things out from scratch, and the final generation, maybe, or my son's generation, I'm sure it's the final this time around anyway. Has to be. Look at the population numbers dwindling, and they talk about population control. I can see now a different side to everything that's being presented to us in a cruel and dastardly manner. For chemtrails, for instance, chemtrails, CH, me, trails, right? So what's CH about? Well, can you CH in me in the human form at the center here, right? CH, you are CH, the church of us. So again, it's not just sort of glib. It's not just playing on words. It is pointing out the greater significance between the external division and the internal division, and just the greater significance of Earth itself in this experience we're having. Earth, I forgot to mention ether, Earth, heart, RTH, right? RTH, right there, and it's telling you also he tar. There we have tar again within this core representations. The sound representing, or the word representing the sound, representing the thought, representing the feeling. I guess, yeah. We can't be thought centered. We can't. It doesn't. It doesn't work. That's Pandora's box being opened up. Um, yeah, we are what we are, but we are what we are not as well. Okay. Yeah. So you see how all these things connect. Who are you going to tell about this? It's not who you're going to tell. This is why we were given these platforms. I used to say what I say openly, and pretty much everything I can back up, and I could talk intimately. First of all, refreshing my thoughts on all these things I looked into maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago at this stage. But there ain't time for that. So it's about making bigger leaps. We can afford to make bigger leaps these days. I think, as I said about 9/11 before, even though myself, I had to spend about 4, 5, 6 weeks, I would say, back in 2010 before I came to where I'm at now, right? The medium victim homes. It's obvious. It's obvious. You have to put the time in. But now, as I say, you could do it in a few hours just to get the core of the, the thing down. You could just you could do that literally. So yeah, as I say, ask yourself. You can't rely on the ballers. That's revealing in itself. All the ballers to the man are pretty much official 9/11 story guides. This is all obvious, transparent deception. So we've got to be asking what allows them to sort of cooperate within this deception. What's the greater story here? Now, of course, we have Satanists being thrown around and then being part minions for the New World Order, which is fair enough. That's absolutely a possibility. As I said, if all things are as it seems, all of these people are enemies to mankind. Absolutely. And if it was as it seems, um, and I was in that situation, well, hanging would be good enough, wouldn't even be good enough for me because it'd be too quick. If I had just did all this knowingly to detriment of my fellow man for my own personal profit or gain or whatever, that's all. Simple as that. So death would even be too good for me, right? Because it's horrible. But yeah, I have long since entertained that all is not and all is never as it seems. So the real motivations behind all of these acting parts, who knows? That's there to figure out. I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm saying absolutely entertain that it is the case. There's not really you can do about it though. So entertain other possibilities as well. That's all I'm saying. And well, remember, everyone outside of yourself, if you haven't met them, you have no relationship with them, you're just another character, not just another person token. You're there at the end of the day to put all of your pieces together and make what you will of all of this experience. Um, as I say, for the most part, the same applies to all of us. SIR, I and you are S, right? um, me are you. Mount Meru, me are you. Yeah, don't even get me started on some of the anagrams with Aristarchus. Um, yeah, well, the decapitated tree of life is still all encompassing. And well, just again, the moon landing, so reconnecting Mother Earth, Father Sky, or Mother Sky with the moon being feminine, being a reflection of the sun, right? And well, the father aspect coming from the rocket, the penis shooting forward from the Earth with three astronauts, the spermies, astronauts, right? Astronautical stars in water. Excellent. Astronaut, right? Stars in water. Astronautical, astro, star, nautical, water. Stars in water, star in water. So I didn't make that connection till now, but yeah, the three astronauts, the three sperms, the S-TARs, a TAR is the name for an able-bodied seaman, right? So it's the semen, the sperm meeting the egg, right? The womb man, right? And it's this reconnection because this division had taken place. We had the decapitation, the castration of Aristarchus. Yeah. Remember, I said like a live wire, just like a wire normally, and then just being severed. Then you have it flailing all over the place. But imagine if you had it contained, well, then that energy would be directed. This is pretty much what's creating the barrier, right? Is this all real? This sounds fucking whacked. This sounds whacked. I'll never have. If I get back to writing songs, I'll never have a problem with themes again. Throughout all the songs I wrote, if I was to sort of say the biggest problem I had would be a sort of a theme, and just now I see it as like trying to write about something that I think other people or someone outside myself would be interested in, rather than writing from myself. But now If I go back to writing or whatever my future holds, I certainly will never, ever, ever be short of themes ever, ever again, ever, ever again. This is such a fruitful, in one sense, mentally fruitful pathway. But yeah, this is what this live wire being contained is generating everything. So electricity and magnetism are two sides of the same coin. Everything is reflective. Electricity is the feminine, magnetism is the masculine, right? And well, it's about, yeah, I see. I know what science is doing now. I know what they're doing. Like, and when we even said they, it's all a game. It's all theater, all the way back. It's theater. All of the main characters that are presented to you, all caricatures. They're all crafted characters that we were always meant to see through. I mean, Einstein and tranny. Einstein was a tranny. I knew it years ago. You look up old pictures of old Einstein, younger Einstein. They're not the same man. Then you start getting into his life story and some of the different controversies associated with. And then you start looking into the tranny thing, and it all collapses into pantomime, and that's the way it is. So it's the same with characters like Tesla, another absolutely fabricated character, but still clung to by lots of flat earthers, without looking into the possibility that we're dealing with more of the same theater. So I think this bigger picture is sort of constantly been discouraged from looking towards, and it's sort of what you need to do as the individual because everything is so interconnected. And when you look at everything as a whole, and this is, I've heard this a few times. And of course, we hear it through the years, and of course, it makes sense as well. How can we understand anything? Maybe we were never meant to understand anything, so we might as well just give up here. That's fine, man. I've loads of times said you can you don't have to play a good game. You don't have to have the ability to talk a good game, but by fuck, you can think a good game. There's no restrictions there. In other words, you mightn't have the skills to actually do something. Go out and score that bicycle kick in front of a crowd in Wembley or something, or you mightn't have um, that innate ability to sort of wax lyrical on any topic or anything. But you can think freely, can't you? There's nothing stifling that except, well, I guess yourself. And yeah, yeah. Well, the game is rigged from the start, is the point here. And there's lots of characters leaving, actually. Lots of characters exit the stage left, I think, in preparation. So sometime between now, so it's 2/9/19 and well, yeah, 9/11/19. What's that? September, October. There's only 2 months. Only 2 months. But yeah, I'll be getting going immediately, as I said, on restructuring my life, and hope the answers will come to me anyway. But as I say, the answers are everywhere. We just have to get the context right and everything in order. And yeah, that's the way I see everything playing out. So it's far from a negative sense. And to be more specific, then as well about 9/11, I mean, on the practical front, we have all of these steel structured buildings acting as ray guns, if you want. They take the place of um, the the giant crystalline trees, the support trees for the pillar or for the pillars, the support pillars when Aristarchus was in full blossom. Um, and all these different lesser trees are, I guess you could call them tributaries of the one tree. So it's just everything comes back to one. But yeah, these supporting pillars along the desert areas, especially of the earth, right? That's a good question for anyone out there, actually, ball earthers and flat earthers. Why are the desert areas not along the equatorial lines? This is where you're going to get the most direct sun over the course of the year. Why is this not the situation? Yeah, there's a different answer to that. But anyway, throughout all of the Earth's desert areas, I bet you're going to find some either HARP institutes or some tall steel structured buildings gone up in the last few years. I say this is all to act in lieu or in placement of the giant supporting trees that well channeled. The best I can say is life force energy. So it's in relation to Star Trek or Star Trek, wrecked star, but it is life force. It's all emanating from the tree of life, our Astartes Mangaru. And yeah, so one Freedom Tower, I think that's going to be the main ray gun. And I think okay, just to talk about 9/11 as well. So when you make your way to the deeper layers of conspiracy, you're left with three options. You're left with Dmitry Kalasov, um, Judy Wood, and Simon Shack. The three of those. There we have Simon Shack, SS, right? Fucking hell, come on. Anyway, with the other two, Judy Wood, right? Wood. So we have Wood being a prominent feature there, and Demi-Tree, Kalazov. That's literally his name. Um, so we have Wood and Demi-Tree, Demi-Tree and Wood. What's Aristarchus? Well, that's the decapitated tree of life, the tree cut in half. Okay. So yeah, Judy Wood talks about Jews directed energy weapons. Everything is reversed, remember. So instead of directed energy weapons from the sky to the ground, this is in preparation for the directed energy weapons from ground to the sky. It's a re-inflation of the barrier, a re-energizing following the collapse. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. And I haven't, again, this one another one of those things to look into, but I don't know how you're going to find it. I tried to look for it before, but it's a very strange contraption at the very top of Freedom Tower, and whether it was drone footage or something, it was sort of restricted enough footage, and it gave some sort of very mysterious glimpse into this alien, futuristic, like looking contraption at the top of One World Trade. For me, that's the top of ray gun. That's where all the energies are gathered, and that's where I'm focused, and that's where just in version of what Judy Wood says happened on 9/11. So we also think about the pillars, the blue pillars of light, to go up on an annual basis. Uh, uh, in that area, isn't it? Do you remember those? I'm not sure if it's still going on, but in the place of where the Twin Towers were, we had these two blue pillars of light going skybound. So I think again more clues and more sort of references to the truth of matters. When we come to a point later on where we look back and understand the greater story here and how we had to be lied to or why we consented to being lied to or whatever. Or when the greater story unfolds, we can look back and see all of these things put in place to prepare our minds, like for the greater truth. And yeah, well, the time is rife. I think things. I know I've said it before so many times. Things should start accelerating, and well, it's always just a matter of time, isn't it? Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't even got into chat once. I've mentioned before about maybe I won't go into chat. Maybe I won't go. Is that okay? I haven't gone into chat. Maybe I won't go into chat. I'm just chat here. And look, these days, if you're here, you can talk to someone in chat because um, um, that's where most of the learning will go on. Waffling shit here most of the time, as I do. or most places I've heard as well. It's not waffling shit. There's some very good argument. We know the globe is dead, right? We know that, and the people who are consistently sort of stabbing the globe, on a basis, a daily basis, and a sort of continual basis, that's fine. There's a role to be played, I guess, but um, it's for a certain audience. So yeah, don't forget your own personal quest here, and yeah, you never know where the next clue piece will enter the equation. You never know. You just never know. It just depends on where you are, what type of questions you're asking. One thing I'm sure, if you do ask the questions, the answers will come. I've said it again. I haven't asked for. Honestly, it's not that I haven't. I have got loads of signs. I know they are. I've seen loads of letters. As I said tonight, that was a dragon, man. If you were here looking at me, you said I was a dragon, just like you said, that's a fucking scorpion. That just looks like a scorpion. Now, I'm not saying it was, but that's just the way it looks. So maybe I'll look after I finish here. I'm not going to sound too much longer. I'll look at dragon and scorpion, scorpion first and then dragon. So we'll see what information that might yield. But yeah, I haven't asked for any signs in ages, and I have done, and I definitely got signs. And you yourself, if you lack faith, that there's a high faith as well, Faith, right? Um, um, Fa for father, Father, mother, Mother, right? As I said, these most basic of concepts, they all feature the most significant arrangement of letters. So it's there for us to decode the letters. And what's a constant process is not. I'm not claiming to know anything, and I'm certainly not expressing anything in any clear and cohesive form. But well, who knows? Who knows how I'll try structure maybe some 5-minute videos. It'd definitely be helpful. It'd be helpful for everyone. So anyway, that's for the future. But yeah, if you're looking for a sign in your personal life, if you think this is all just in the mind, if you're looking for a sign, you go and ask for one. Ask from the heart for a sign, and you'll get one. But be careful, I would say, because you might know what to do with it. You might know what to do with that correspondence. It's not going to be made that easy. So yeah, follow the clues. Martin Leakey. So I was talking about the tar earlier on. Aris tar, because Martin Leakey was in the Navy. Martin Leakey, he was a tar himself, talking about Tartaria. What's going on here? There's something else going on. So, are you not interested? Are you not interested? Yeah, but once again, don't separate it. Don't separate yourself from. We're all stardust or stardust. Shit, stardust. And yeah. You talk about this stuff. Who do you talk about? Who would any of this stuff? But the clues are there, right? As Stardust, we all come from Stardust. Just a what? Okay. Just to give you another, I mentioned the last time, look up where Michael Jackson was in 9/11. Tom York was in 9/11. Very revealing. And Paul McCartney was in 9/11. The three dodos. Three dodos. So all connecting, but to cut to the chase, where my bottom line and on it all, it's the same story. Again, the end of the division. Right? We're divided to from a unified to a divided to a reunified state. We're going through that process, and well, when did it end and when did it begin? these are the different considerations. It's sort of a constant process. Time is not what we think of. Nothing is what we think of it. When they talk about the bending of space-time, it's metaphorical, right? They're not just purely taking the piss, even though they are taking the piss. We're taking it all literally. When we understand what space is and what time is, time equates to the sun, right? And the passage of the sun. So now we have to understand what the sun might be. Well, space, when we understand, when I say we as well, it's my own thinking, projecting, that, well, we are in a confine, but we live in a broken system. So what has defined the space? What has created the space in the separation to begin with? Is all important. So when we get back to the tree of life, Aristarchus, and we understand that that has crafted the space amid the surrounding saline waters. When Aristarchus was decapitated on top, we had a collapse of the barrier, and we had an inundation of these saline waters beyond, a changing face to the land, destroyed by fire, as the story goes, and we had a changing face, like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. This is what I think. This is what I think. Actually, my mother just mentioned it earlier on. I said, "What are you worried about forests?" I said, "What are you worried about? You've never been to Brazil. You know what's going on there. Do you think they don't have the ability to shut down any fire to any degree?" So anyway, that got me thinking about the phoenix rising out of the ashes, and in the Amazon as well. Then we have the A to Z. I have to think a bit more about that, but I don't know anything about it except that it's in the news. And I even actually walking down the street the other day, or last week, saw someone had gone to the trouble of writing a little chalk, and I was thinking, oh, this is just maybe giving about. I was thinking actually like they're giving out about the chemtrails or something. I know it was just passionate, big writing. You had to sort of stop and read it, but as you walk down, the passionate outburst against the fires in the Amazon, and how for breathing, they say you have to stop the fires because a lot of oxygen comes from these forests generating or recycling carbon dioxide or whatever, And I was like, okay. Now I'm looking for the phoenix out of the ashes symbology, or if I do look into it, whatever you want to. But yeah. I have to think about that more now because, of course, Amazon itself, the company, has I don't follow them, but like they're surely one of the top companies earthwide. So they've jumped to the top in terms of prominence, and everyone has heard of them. And well, nothing is organic. All of these, everything is a part of the construct. So we're getting messages from one area or another area. Everything is revolving around the same thing. So it'd be interesting. Actually, I haven't looked into it at all, so I literally know nothing about this Brazilian rainforest fire, if it's still going on, or what's the official story. But the official story is nonsense anyway. But let's see how it can connect to, well, this greater phoenix from the ashes idea that, well, we're in the midst of now. Earth is in the state of repair. Isn't that an interesting word as well? Repair, bringing together of two disparate or separated components. Mother Earth, Father Sky. Yeah. Yeah. But as I say, look, do yourself a favor and see beyond the literal and 9/11. You have to do that. And it is pivotal, it is central to everything, to our greater story here. This everything revolving around 9/11. So being able to get to the core of that, to your own satisfaction, that's all you have to do. Don't push yourself in anything. So honestly, don't mind what if you think a lot of the stuff I'm saying is, Jesus, way out there, but you have some sort of trust in some of the things I'm saying, but you can't grasp well, fuck it, leave it go. Don't worry about that. Leave it go. Don't be forcing anything upon yourself. But if you have that desire to get to the bottom of it, yeah, well, do yourself a favor. Save yourself a lot of time. Um, Go on YouTube, look at the basic videos, and absorb then the general idea that you are dealing with a symbolic event, and then take it from there. So yeah, all of these different stepping off points, save points, well, become vital. So that's all you can say is take it at your own pace. But well, beyond that, you're on your own. You're on your own, kiddo. But you're not. We're all together in this one. We're all in the same boat. What applies to one applies to all of us. Um, yeah. If I continue talking now, I'll just continue talking for ages as well. So, as it's been just a quick one tonight, I just wanted to say that. But that was a very interesting. I was just coming down the hill tonight. I said, "Fucking hell, isn't that?" Because it just tied in so much with what I was thinking as well. That JFK, well, 9/11/01, if you invert and reverse um, the numerical associations with the letters JFK, head wound, Count Ada, the survival of the head wound in the form of JFK coming back as Jimmy Carter, JC, the resurrection. And well, yeah, JC, King Arthur, it's the same reference. Ultimately back to Aristarchus, Aristarchus. When Aristarchus was decapitated, we had the sky as is, which has been divided clock-like into 12 signs of the zodiac. So yeah, the Scorpion is. I should be looking into Scorpion now to see. I might actually look into where in the sky, because I know where it was. You might go into Google or where in the sky the scorpion appeared. Imagine it appeared in Scorpio. That'd be funny. But I'll yeah, look into that now just to see some of the general associations with Scorpio or scorpions. And I know there is some great significance, symbolic significance within the scorpion himself. So yeah, let's see where that leads us. Um, Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna sing you out as well. I'm sorry about that. But hopefully now, by the next time, definitely, as it's a new beginning. Actually, great progress in my nose as well. I think I got the last of it out. Um, it's like you've been carrying around the weight all your life, honestly, and you didn't even realize it was there. It's a terrible trouble sleeping constantly, one nostril being blocked up and the other one breathing up. And to find out then after all these years that this was the cause of it, and it wasn't even anything too major. It was like maybe just dirt or snots or something that just compacted and just got lodged there early doors and just made a home for themselves. So to get him out wasn't too bad at all, but I didn't realize what to say about it. Yeah. Um, so maybe an omen there, maybe an omen. But yeah, sorry for not getting into chat. If there was any questions or anything, I'm fucking desperate, but don't worry about it at the same time. Don't lose any sleep over it. And well, pay attention to your dreams as well. That's another thing. There's signs and wonders all around us for us to reach up for anyway. So yeah, sorry for not interacting again tonight, but thanks for tuning in for what it was anyway. And yeah, you definitely, as the individual, go and reconsider 9/11 and what's going on. There's a much more wondrous, fantastic story behind literal that, well, ultimately will come back to you yourself and your own nature and your own being. So until the next time, friends, thanks for tuning in, and I love you, Steve.